live with session 19. Did I put that it's 19? Yes, I put it here. Hopefully I also put it at the stream title, that this is the 19th session of Raft. I'm trying to improve my microphone sound quality, so I've moved the microphone over to the other side where there's less window noise and less noise from the fan. It used to be right next to the fan. I think that might have been screwing it up a bit. Noise cancelling and that. So hopefully it's improved. It will improve now. Well, we'll see how it goes. Anyway, yeah, slightly inauspicious place that we left it last time with session 18. Just with the fact that I kind of identified a bug, not even just a bug, I identified a design decision and section that needed to be rewritten. And I thought of how I was going to do that, but then just before the end I ran out of time. And all that was because, well, of course, all of it was because my internet cable fell out and so I lost 10 minutes. I don't know. Blaming that kind of stuff will get you nowhere. So forget about that. Instead, I am just gonna make the first part of the stream all about actually going through with that change, implementing that, and then we're just back to the grind of hunting down bugs, and that's it. It's gonna be a fun, almost 2 hour long stream today, I think. Yes, camera stand, man. What have I done? Brackets programming. Maybe if I put it IRL again, I'll get loads of, I'll get beer views. Because clearly, views is what I need for this project. Never mind. Anyway. Listen up. Listen up. What I'm working on is part B of Project 2 of MIT's Distributed Systems course. You can find the summary just top right of my Twitch page. There's just a box called The Story So Far. And literally all I'm doing at the moment is hunting down bugs, and so, well, just get stuck in and you'll be able to see what I'm doing when you see some of the bugs pertaining to what I'm doing. I have this scrap document, which is also up on my GitHub repository and resources on my Twitch page. And this scrap document basically just covers the design outline. And so this is what's going to need to be changed to some extent, because I've made a few changes in the design. Basically, this is the change that I'm thinking of making. As far as I understand, the change is entirely contained within the write phase. So it's all about the data, it's all about how data moves through this consensus algorithm. The change, as far as I'm aware, is all about write. So the point where all of the servers in the cluster write down a new piece of data before committing, after it's input into Raft, and yeah, before it's sent out as well as finished. So that phase, and it's about how the follower handles. It's basically about how the follower handles merging of log. That's what I want to clarify. So I'm gonna sit down and do that. This is my new design for an algorithm. So forget the old shit. The old shit was confusing and difficult to implement. I implemented it, and I have no idea what I implemented. That's how bad it is. So like, yeah, a change it has got to come. My eyes are a bit fevery. Some loud chat of bangers coming from outside. Barely audible because of the mic. There's a bit of noise suppression on the microphone, just 12 decibels, nothing too serious. Alright, I'm gonna blow my nose a bit because I've really just come out in runs of like crying and shit, so just go ahead and do that. Sniffle, sniffle, sneeze, sneeze. You know the ones. Okay, so this is my new. The thing that I'm starting with is my new version of what the follower does when it merges log. Mine eyes. Mine eyes. Alright, so I'm rewriting merge log. This is how it goes. The leader. So the way that it works, the way that it's always worked, is that the leader sends data to the follower and it tries to guess what data the follower has. So the follower's trying to sync its log up to the leader, and the leader's trying to send the follower what it needs in order to get the whole log. Nothing but the log. So the way the leader does it is it has its own log, and the leader's log is Bible. And it doesn't send its entire log, it sends bits of log. And the bit where it starts sending the log is determined by next index, which is set on a per follower basis. And if a follower fails, as in it returns fail on the success variable, then the leader decrements next index and tries to send again. Else, it updates next index to its own last entry plus 1, and the match index to its own last entry. So next index being the thing that should be sent next is the thing that the leader has last, the most recent leader entry plus 1. Because every send from the leader to the follower has all the data from next index to the end. And so the leader will always send out all its data. And when there is a success, the follower has all the data. Match index is just the leader trying to figure out what the latest thing the follower has is, and these get desynced sometimes because reasons. I don't know, it's not something I understand that well. Man outside scoping, planning to break into the flat. Oh no, he can literally just open the window. I actually saw him literally walk in through the window yesterday. So it's probably his parents' house or something. I think he's going to do it again. Fucking no. I don't understand why they can't just use doors. Like, you know, living on the street. But this is a bit much, I feel. Anyway, so yeah, next index and match index. The way success works is the follower checks if it has the entry that the leader doesn't just send its payload of entries that it thinks the follower needs. It also sends out the entry before that. It doesn't send out the entire entry. Instead, it sends out the details of the entry. So the index the entry was at, and the term of the entry. The term being a variable that basically determines who is the leader. It's an election term. So, you know, every time there's a new term, there's a new leader, or that someone tries to there's an attempt at electing a new leader, and so if the terms match, then we know that the same leader handled it basically, and so that's kind of it's a good check of data validity that we're not that we're stable, you know, stability and that. So yeah, so the leader sends its previous log entry, its index and term, and then the follower checks if at that index it has an entry with that term. In which case it's like, yeah, I'm on board with this leader, I have all that data, so I can take all the data that follows it and just append it to my log. So that's determined, you know, that is the criterion for success. This is just a mini criterion that ensures things are working smoothly and is not really relevant to the main intuition behind success. And so the point is, you know, if success fails, then leader decrements next index and tries again. But it's all about, what we care about is how the follower merges the log depending on what the leader has just sent it, right? Getting really suspicious of this guy, I might call the police on him. So that's basically that. He's taking a selfie of himself on a chat estate. I don't understand. Okay, well, at least he's not recording the inside of the house in order to like scope it before burgling it. Distractions, fam, distractions. So yeah, what the follower's been doing so far is just confusing. I think this is the thing. We expect there to be a success at some point. I would say, let me just try to guess what the algorithm should be, and then I'll confirm it if I figure out what I think it should be. So I think mergers should only happen if success happens, which means that there is an entry matching prevlog index and prevlog term. In that case, the follower has an entry matching prevlog index and term, and the leader has that entry as the one before everything it just sent over. Which means that what the follower should do is follower should, regardless of if there is a conflict or not, just for simplicity's sake, deletes log starting from prev log index +1 and straight merges payload. So the point is that payload starts at prevlog index +1 and the follower is deleted from that index onwards, and so just appending one to the other should do the merge. So, this is what I mean. This is the append section here, which is like, oh, find the last entry I have and then append it, which is just confusing. I'd rather delete all the entries, even if the follower has them, provided that the follower had to say, oh, this is the prevlog index and term that I definitely have. So my point is, prevlog index and term decrement until we hit an entry that the follower has. That means the follower in principle should be out of sync on every entry from prevlog index +1 onwards. So it makes sense to delete them without checking again if they are correct. So I'm pretty sure this is just it seems like a much simpler way of doing it. If there is a failure, then just don't touch the log of the follower, and I think that's fine as well, because eventually there will be a success, and then we can deal with everything. And then we have like the first entry that needs to be deleted in the form of prevlog index +1. That's because every entry after that failed the success criterion and therefore probably just wasn't there. So that's fine. And so we don't even need to bother checking it intermediately while term sync is failing. We don't need to bother checking if these entries are actually there, because we kind of think that they're not, and so it's reasonable to assume they're not, because it doesn't matter. Once there is a success, everything will be synced up correctly. Okay? That's the intuition, and that's the entire code, really, isn't it? So let's see how it compares to the previous code. So I'm saying this should just be replaced with this, right? As in, this merge log should be replaced with this merge log. So it's merge log, it's still merge log if success, right? This is still the same, but I'm saying this is the entire step. So A is follower deletes that, it doesn't check, it just straight deletes it, and then B is it straight merges the payload. So the old code is saying, I look for a different term at the same index and then delete the log from there onwards. Well, in principle, this is saying I delete the log from that entry onwards. So say we have a success, and the previous step before that was a failure, say. Because if it were a success, it doesn't matter. Prevlog index will cover the previous data that was sent, and so there won't be any redundant messing about with data. if there's a failure, then next index is decremented, and so we have prevlog index +1 coming through. But the implication is because it failed last time that the index above that was not in the follower's stuff. And so therefore that follower should have at that index an entry that is in principle with a different term, because that's how prevlog index is checked. That is just a check of that an entry with that term at that index. So it's exactly the same criterion. And then that just gets deleted anyway. So I think this covers that, and it's just a much simpler implementation thereof. And then append new entries is the same because I'm just adding things that are not already in the log. Well, if I've deleted everything from prevlog index +1, then the entire payload is not in the log, so I merged the entire payload. And I don't have to figure out where to merge it because by definition of prevlog index, the payload immediately follows it. Done. QED. Or something. Sorted. This is so much simpler than this, it's unbelievable. So I think that's it. I think that's how it's supposed to work. And so I'm just going to straight up, to be honest, I'm going to just delete the codes that I had for the follower merging log, because everything else is the same. It's just the follower merging log, and I'm going to just redo. So sick. I'm going to do that now, straight up. I'm going to do that immediately, as soon as I re-blow my nose. And after that, we're done, and we just debug a bit more debugging. So we just continue on where we left off. I thought I heard chat noise there, but I just nicked my laptop, I think, or something. I don't know what's going on, but see, camera's working, microphone's working. Sick. It's more than enough. That's more than enough. Okay. Yeah, I have a song in my head, so do you know what? I'm gonna just casually Google the lyrics so that I can actually sing it, because it has a really good vocal melody. I will shake the scales and rise above and dragging. Is that it? I'm not happy with the rhythm there. Well, I mean, it's not like they've ever had particularly simple lyrics, to be honest. Just reading this is good enough to tell you that these lyrics are like, I don't know, not going to be strictly easy to remember, but it's fine. All right, camera, mic. What's going on? Oh, laptop fan has just exploded into action, so I want to check what's going on there. Slobs. Nothing else is really taking up that much CPU. So I'd say we're fine. I don't know why it's randomly turned on like that. It's not rattling, thankfully. But yeah, 80 degrees is a bit hot, considering I have an external fan happening here. It's bloody stupid. Alright, so let's just implement this. We've redesigned it, now we're going to re-implement it. Straight up with the re-implementation. Anyway, this goes in the follower append entries receiver. Append entries is the protocol, the communication from the leader to the follower. And so the receiver is the function that is run to handle the response of the follower to the leader. So this bit is basically what I'm just Forget that this shit ever happens. I'm just gonna rewrite it fully. So it says here next sesh. Basically what I said, except it says here regardless of success. I've decided I am actually gonna do it if success, after all, because deleting while it's failed is just unnecessary work because it will succeed eventually, and then we delete all that shit anyway, so it's all fine. Delete all that shit. Don't at me. Alright, here we go. Follower deletes this and then straight merges the payload. Done. So, rf.log equals rf.log resliced. It's nice in Go you can change lists, you can reslice lists with like 0 memory consumption because the array underneath it is unmodified, so even if there was other stuff the array is just left alone, but the actual interface to the array which says this is where the array is located, this is the start point, this is the end point, that gets changed. And so it's kind of like how a hard drive would store data. The data just dereferenced rather than getting explicitly removed, and so it just in memory gets overwritten later on, rather than the array getting copied over in order to be edited. So I think Go's quite nice in that sense. I quite like the way it does slices, as in lists, because in Go lists are called slices, and slicing a list is reslicing a slice, I guess. Semantics, details. Yeah. So, okay, let's just go ahead and do that then. So we're deleting the log. Literally, we're just deleting this. So rf log is rf logged up to and including prevlog index, but because this is an exclusive bound, the right bound is always open. So we basically type args dot prevlog index +1 and hope that works. Shit, what did I do? Sorry, I'm an idiot. I should be editing it here. Args. What does it say problems here? It says like self-assignment of thing to thing. Okay, yeah, fair enough. I shouldn't be doing that. What I'm going to do is quickly run a tour of Go in order to find out, just to check. A tour of Go is like a nice Go online sandbox. What I'm going to do is just run that. Mic. Oops. In order to check what happens if I have a list that is, say, length 4, and I slice it up to position 5. I'm kind of scared that this is going to fail, but really it shouldn't, because this is saying... Oh, sorry, no, position 4. Yeah, because this is saying it should include the entirety of the list, right? And that it does. Okay, so if I put a 5 in here, it would fail. It would say in the slice out of range. And likewise, I'm allowed to put as a -1 here, I'm pretty sure. No, I'm not allowed to put -1, but I am allowed to put this, which is equivalent to -1. If I put 0, that also works. 0, incidentally, works even if this is set to 0. So if the list has length 0, you're still allowed to slice from the 0 position, provided obviously you don't put a 4 in there. This still works. Does 1 work here? I think 1 should not work, but 0 should work. Which it does. I would say it goes, if it is enforcing, well, I mean, it wants to enforce checking statically whether or not the slice indices are actually in bounds of the original slice. Fine. Python doesn't do that, and I think all the better for it, because you can set, you can fix slice bounds and then have that work whether or not the slice is in range just by taking the bit of the slice that is in range. But Go doesn't want to do that, but more power to it, because it lets you pick your slice bounds that are, slightly out of range in order to get exactly what you want, and so it works regardless. It just is less flexible, but Less flexible means more statically analyzable and better code safety, so I'm absolutely down with that. To be honest, that saved my ass a few times already. So, if this were a JavaScript project, I would have some absolutely nasty bugs that I would just not be able to figure them out. But with Go, I'm certainly finding that basically every bug I just immediately know where it is and can figure out what's causing it, and then it's usually an error in program logic that's causing the bug. Alright, so one thing to note here is that I want to slice this up to prevlog index plus 1. So if reply.success is true, that means that there exists in rf.log an entry whose index is prevlog index, args prevlog index. So this entry exists, and so this entry plus 1 is always a valid slice reference, which means either this exists as well, or trivially prevlog index was the last entry, in which case this plus 1 specifies that we keep the entirety of the slice. So this is totally fine. And then we straight merge the payload after that, which is literally just, literally just do this. In fact, you know what? I can do this in one line of code because easy. Yeah, the way it's done is you go append to this. So first of all, we slice it down, and then we append the new entries, which are quite literally just the entries. No need to edit them at all, just the entries. Dot 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 is the notation that we append. Instead of appending a reference to that array to the rest of the array, we append the array itself. So we merge the lists. We extend, as Python would say, and dot 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 allows us to do that. That's literally it. So delete that. That is this, and then just auto merge. That is this. Regardless of success, I decided I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do it assuming success after all, which is fair because then we definitely have prevlog index existing, for example, in the array, and so this step doesn't need to be modified. Then doesn't need to be an extra safety check there. And I'll tell you what, this is it. So this is the old code. So I'm going to just remove the old code. And then we have some information here about, this is just some extra print debug statements that I put in. That I would say I don't need for the time being because the code is so simple that it probably works, and I'll look at the print debug statements later if need be, but as it is, I'm totally down with just leaving it this way. If reply success, just do this, and that's the code, that's everything. And so I'll just delete all this stuff later if it turns out that it works, if it's all good. So I'm gonna run a test, blow my nose first, and then run the test. Look at this, one line of code compared to this stuff, which had like a for loop in it and everything. Alright, yeah, I need to blow my nose again, soz. Yeah, I'm having it particularly bad with the runny nose and that today, unfortunately, but I'll survive. Okay, let's check that the camera is still in focus before running the tests. Camera gets unfocused so easily, it's really annoying. The autofocus, I don't know, autofocus tends to be bad on webcams, but maybe it is after all better than this, because this just gets unfocused so easily. Hi, how's it going? Wagwan. Mic, camera, action. Right, so... Wait, let me just tilt this shit again. Yep. Tilt my legs and that. Get it all. Yep, camera, mic. Yeah, that's fine. Mic, camera. Okay. Let's put a note in chat saying redid redid follower log merges. Now to test. A quick kind of smell of shit outside. Really, fam. Really. Yep. Yeah, I mean, let's continue. Today's session, by the way, is going to end at around 2 p.m. again, slightly earlier, hopefully, maybe even 1:30. And then I'll resume with an evening session. I'd like another evening session just to give myself a bit of an organizational break, with the sleeping particularly being quite dodgy. Camera, mic. Well, let's see how it goes. I mean, I'll tell you what, like, this project in particular, I've never felt more scared that something is just gonna die in flames and absolutely not work, because honestly, it's just, I'm always in fear that this distributed system is so complicated that I will just mess it up irrecoverably. But you know, the 2A tests are still both passing, everything's nice. I think they're both passing, but I don't know. I'm gonna do the 2B tests, so because I'm working on part B, I'm gonna do the 2B1 test. Sorry, that error there was just because I didn't load the session. I always forget to do that. So I'm running, part B, which I'm working on now, has 7 tests, and I'm just running the first one, 2B1, just to sort of see how it goes. I don't know. Well, it seems to be working quite well. Okay, so let's do a few more tests to check if there are any crash bugs. If I've gotten rid, rustling in the corridor, sorry, slightly distracting. If I've gotten rid of all of the crash bugs, then progress. So let's just run this code a few times to see if it crashes. It's saying failed to reach consensus on one log entry. 1 brackets 100, what does this mean? I think it means like, I'll tell you what, I'll check config.go to see what it's talking about in line 465. There is more information here on what all the debug stuff means. It says here 1 and then V, which is the CMD, which is the command, the piece of data that's passed in, saying failed to reach agreement. I'll tell you what would be interesting. In the kill codes of the tester, which is here, I can put in a function that just prints the logs. Let's go ahead and do that. So just a really quick step debug to find out what's going on. So I just put in that print statement. So at the end, when they're finished they're just going to go ahead and print their logs. Zero nil zero. Oh no, 0 0 is the default entry. So these have 3 100 in them. All of them seem to have 3 100 in them. Oh, except one. What I want to do is... Oh yes, shit. I always have to... Shit, I keep forgetting. I have to keep typing rf.me so I know who's who, or else. I want to also cut this down to 0.5 seconds. This is the time that I'm leaving as a grace period for... What the fuck? Seriously? Okay, let's have, 5 deciseconds. Let's go. Fucking ridiculous. It doesn't even know what a decisecond is. Millisecond. 500 milliseconds. Okay. Yeah, I have to keep remembering that to print who I am, and I'm cutting down. This is just the amount of grace after the attempted force close by permanently locking a server, just to make sure that the lock actually goes through. And the server stops doing everything. Because this doesn't, not everything needs a lock to happen, but most things do, and so locking it and refusing to unlock is a good way of ending it, the program, fairly fast. So I'm giving 500 milliseconds grace. Alright, so wagwan. Yeah, I'm just going to print myself and my log. And then we'll try to figure out why things have not worked out. Well, 4 is and 3 have this log. 2 has failed for some reason to get agreement. 1 and 0 also just didn't work. So before the first one exited, namely here, I would like to know who's the leader. Wow, this is a bit chaotic. The server seems to have... Pretty much everything has crashed here. I mean, when it says failed to reach agreement, should it have reached agreement considering... Well, does the majority have the correct data? Does the leader have the correct data? Who is the leader? These are the questions. I'm going to have to read through this shit to try to figure out what happened. Alright, so, looking at it here, certain man, namely, you see how 4 gets elected leader with 3 votes here? Who voted for 4? It's not really easy to tell unless I scroll back. I see 0 didn't vote for 4. 1 did. 2 did. And 4 voted for itself. So 1, 2, and 4 recognized 4 as their leader. 0 quit. 2 and 3 all had their votes interrupted, which is good. 0 also timeout on candidacy. Oh no, sorry, 0 became a candidate, and so 0 is trying to call an election at the same time. 0 is probably disconnected from the rest of the code. Well, you say that, but 0 sent a request to vote, and... Oh right, yeah, they're running... this is a split vote situation, 0 and 4 calling votes at the same time. But 4 has won. 4 becomes leader. So, 1 is reset as follower, 4 is now sending out messages. Who's receiving the messages? 3 is receiving them. 2 and 1 are receiving these messages as well. 3 is having resets, 2, 3, yeah, 4 is definitely the leader here. So 4 is no problem. And 4 is the leader of term 3. And it's sending out its heartbeats. You know, it has next indices on everyone except itself, so everyone should have the correct data. Well, you can see the next index was decremented for 3 here. But 4 is still very much sending heartbeats out to everyone. What's the next round of heartbeats? Oh, 4 became a follower. I don't think 4 should be becoming a follower in this situation. Well, you say that, but I mean, it lost, you know, it's timed out because I think it got disconnected, so. Well, no, it says here 1 became a follower and then 4 sent out a heartbeat, but 4 sent out a heartbeat, but like, well, not fast enough, I guess. Append entries. Yeah, these are the RPCs from the previous, but then yeah, 1 becomes a candidate, and then 4 gets failed. 1 has timed out here, kind of faster than I would have liked. But the problem with 1 is that I don't think its log was up to date. Oh no, it was up to date. Okay, yeah, because it says 2 is the next index. That means it received the 1 piece of data. Sorry, the continual stream of speech now is just me trying to get to the bottom of this error. I think it'll happen soon. Let's go. Okay, so yeah, 1, okay, fine. 1 became a candidate. Timeout, okay, cool. And 1 should have a full set of data because, you know, it says here that the next index was 2 for 1. The match index was 1, meaning 4 thinks that everything has. Well, thinks that everything pretty much should have the right data, except perhaps 2. 1, so this is 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4 itself. 0, sorry, server 1 should be up to date on the log, and so I mean, it's saying here, you know, 4 did not vote for 1. 4 refused to vote for 1, even though 1 timed out. This is just part of my implementation. 1 is still in contact with 4, but because it timed out, it gets precedence and 4 becomes the follower, so a re-election has to happen. Maybe I should change that. Maybe that's not good. Maybe request vote should not be triggering an election reset in that situation. But I don't see why not. I mean, you know, 1 timed out, so I'm validating the fact that 1 timed out. 4 becomes a follower because it was out of date on term, but nonetheless it votes false for 1. Well, no, the reason it votes false is because it was out of date on term, so it also votes false. It gets updated and tries again. Yeah, that's also just part of how I've implemented it, not necessarily correct. But 4 and 0, yeah, and you know, it doesn't get into contact with 3 fast enough, so 3 times out as well. 2 and 1 also became candidates. Everyone becomes a candidate, but did anyone get elected leader? No, you see, at the end there is no leader. But there's also no agreement, and in particular, 1, which I said was leading a new vote, seems to have cleared out its log for some reason. Well, I mean, I've been through it all now, and I'm struggling to pick out what's wrong exactly. You know, it could be any number of things that's not gone right here. And I don't know how to diagnose exactly, because I don't really know what should happen in this situation. You know, nobody seems to have committed shit. Commit indices haven't been updated, and indeed some of them just have not transferred any data, which is unfortunate. Yeah, sorry, just passing the time, I guess, by doing a bit of editing. You know, if successful, then I go ahead and append all the entries that I was sent. Wow, the chav music. I set success. If I react, I set success. Maybe the problem is that I'm calling unnecessary elections. I don't know. Let's think about the design of elections just for a bit. I am a bit hungry, unfortunately, but hopefully I'll be able to sort of get over this one problem here that's failing the test. So I'll tell you what. Let me rerun the test and just send it into the out file. Just to, I don't know, have something to stare at, I guess. I didn't do any edit. Yeah, I ran the test without saving this, but I didn't edit it other than moving comments about, so it's fine. Yeah, no agreement. Everyone exiting. What happened to 0? Where did 0 exit? All the way over here. Here it's literally the data did not manage to get sent in at all. But you can see perhaps unnecessary elections are being called. Maybe that's what's wrong. Okay, so this is the thing that I want to kind of consider now. Is whether or not something should give up the leadership in the event that something just randomly called a new election on it. So maybe election timeouts should be overridden. But I don't like that. I feel like election timeouts have a reason to happen. You know, a leader should only remain leader if it can keep up without the election timeouts. So, you know, we have heartbeat timeout 150, election timeout 500. Okay, so somewhere we have a bit of information about what the heartbeat timeouts should be, what all the timeouts should be. So here in the MIT project file, I'm going to have a look at the notes for, I think, part A, which are here. There's a ton of them, and there's a bit of information about what we think the timeouts should be. You know, the tester limits you to 10 heartbeats per second, so an election timeout larger than the paper's 150 to 300, but not too large. So I set it to 500. But at the same time, I think a heartbeat timeout of 150 milliseconds, which is what it is now, is too slow. You know, if the tester limits us to 10 heartbeats, sorry. If it is strictly 10 heartbeats per second, then even setting 101 would be fine here, because heartbeats are synchronous tail recursive code. And that always waits, I think, at least the amount of time that it says it waits. And so then it's just that plus the amount of time it takes to actually run the heartbeat. So this can definitely be optimized, like 120. In fact, 110 would, it makes it a lot faster, a lot less waiting. And yeah, leave an election timeout of 500. Why not? An election randomization is, I think, added on top of the election timeout. So, I think this is... let's have a look if this... to check if this prevents unnecessary elections. Because we definitely had a few unnecessary elections happening before. So just closing down the heartbeat timeouts is hopefully going to fix that. I'm really glad I have these variables just separated out here so I don't have to root around the code in order to change them. That was wee smart. Well, I still failed to reach agreement. There's still a bunch of, I don't know, does it say anywhere what the tests are? Okay, this is interesting. Notice how this one piece of data, namely the number 100, has been registered with the same term by everybody. Servers 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0 all have exactly the same idea. They have exactly the same idea of what the data is. I don't know who sent the data, whoever was leader in term 11, which is, okay, server 4. Server 4 was leader in term 11. It managed to send the data to everyone, but it's saying here failed to reach agreement. I think what that means is the commits are not working. Because the writes seem to have worked, we're trying to agree, basically, that everyone has this one piece of data. But everyone does have the one piece of data. That means that what's gone wrong must be, I think, the commit phase. The fact that nobody has agreed that this data has been finalized, and maybe it needs to be sent out as well in the out phase. So let's have a look at committing. So the data is where we want it to be. Let's log also at the point of exit. At the point of exit, I'm going to go ahead and log the commit index. So this will give us an idea of if commits have actually succeeded. The commit indices should all be the number 1. Literally all of them should be 1. Paying special attention to if the leader's one is 1. Because the leader's commit index is handled in a different way from the follower's one. So here we can already see, okay, there's a bit of a data desync here. Fine, that happens. But, it's all about consensus. And so, again, this piece of data here was sent in term 3. And in term 3, who was the leader? Answer, server 4 again. Server 4's been leadering a lot recently. A lot of leadering. Server 4 is managing to send the data out as 0, 2, and 3, as well as itself. So server 4 is saying, okay, the commit has succeeded. Okay. Has the commit succeeded here? Well, yes, because you can see that 1, 2, 3, 4 of the servers all have the correct piece of data. That means that indeed the commit should have succeeded, and so the 1 is correct here. On the other hand, we also noticed that all of the followers are 0 on commit index, which is to say that's basically, I think that's why we're failing consensus. Nobody's agreeing except the leader. So I mean, there is consensus, but it's only the leader that's recognizing that, and I think everyone who's in the position to recognize that has to do that. And so, God, breathing is hard. Basically, with all that, do you know what? Fuck it. I'm blowing my nose and then I'm going to re-explain what I've just said. Sun's just coming out now. Oh, fuck. Okay. Like, every time I unblock my nose, I can smell shit outside. I think there's probably a dog shit just outside my window. I should probably remove that. Yeah, I'll tell you what. That's going to be the next thing that I do once I'm done streaming. That's not good that that's the deal with the dog shit. Okay. Mic, camera. Yeah, it's not worth worrying about too much. I mean, it's just shit after all. It's not that dangerous. Well, I do have OCD when it comes to hygiene. It must be said. It has been said, not only here. Not only here. Right, yep, so basically I've diagnosed that I think the problem is commits on the follower side. 4 was the leader. Its commit index is reflecting the fact that it did indeed manage to commit this, which is correct because everyone else wrote it. So, the leader wrote, the followers wrote, except one of them, which seems to have failed, but it doesn't matter. The leader then committed because a majority of followers wrote, and so now it's the follower that needs to commit. And this is a bit of code that I thought honestly was easy, but I seem to have done it wrong. Literally, this is it. So, if length of args entries is greater than 0, what? Wait a sec. This is fucked. Okay, I think I've immediately spotted what the problem is. Look at this blueprint, right? So there's a bit of text in the blueprint that I honestly think is just wrong. Here it says, when it comes to the commit phase, this. So let's take a close look at this. I can't highlight, I can snip. I should probably just install Adobe Reader, because why can't I highlight? Seriously, what's wrong with this fucking web browser? Index of last new entry is probably not what I think it is. What's happening is the commit indices are getting set to 0 because most of the heartbeats have no data in them. That's fine, that's natural. But that doesn't mean that the last entry of payload, the commit index, should just be reverted to that. Commit index monotonically increases. So even if I do have this condition here, I have no idea why this is here, the thing that I've just highlighted. I would have thought the follower is just taking the leader's lead. But when it says index of last new entry. Okay, quick thought experiment. What happens if the leader commit should be increased? But here, like it's saying, this means that it should be monotonic. Fine, but okay, so sorry, I got distracted. Back to my point about the thought experiment. Whoops. If the leader commits, sorry, if the last new entry, the leader commit should be increased because the leader has committed, but the last new entry is too low, then it shouldn't. Basically, I think what this should be saying is that leader commit should be set to the minimum of not the last new entry, but rather I'm gonna set it to the length of my log -1, which is my biggest possible entry. This is all in the lock, so it's fine. I'm fine to access this variable, it's locked. Bloody what? Okay, yeah, this is it. So what I'm saying is, so I've replaced the criterion where I'm looking at the last entry in the payload. I've replaced it with just looking in my own log to see what the last entry is. And I'm saying I'm not going to set the commit index beyond my own last entry. I'm also not going to set the commit index beyond the leader's commit index. But other than that, I maximize. So I'm looking for the biggest one that is strict, less than or equal to both of these, i.e. the minimum of both of these. Don't forget, minimum is maximum lower bounds. If you know anything about if you know about partially ordered sets and order relations, minimum, bloody hell, it was all just so technical. It's logical but technical. Minimum is the same as an infimum that is contained, and an infimum, so it is contained because it's one or the other of these two, and it is an infimum which is by definition a maximum of all of the lower bounds. So a minimum is a maximum of all the lower bounds that is also contained. In infinite sets, it's possible for a maximum of lower bounds to exist but not be contained in the set. So take the set of real numbers between 0 and 1 exclusive, for example. The 0 is a is a maximum of all of the lower bounds, but it's not in the set, so it's not a minimum, it's an infimum. A bit of maths for you. But yeah, this is what I mean. Sometimes you can get confused between minimum and maximum, because a minimum is a maximum of lower bounds. It's just the minimum of the things in the set. It's a maximum of the lower bounds to that set. It's kind of fun, but a bit confusing at the same time. So yeah, that's it. I'm setting it, to the minimum. So it's the maximum lower bound, because I'm trying to make commit index is a lower bound of commits, and I'm trying to maximize it. But it's the minimum of what the leader's commit index is. So I'm matching the leader, but I'm also not going beyond what actually exists in my log. So this is my new logic. Let's see if it works. Get your blessers in the chat. 2B1. Go. Yeah, because the commit indices were 0, and they definitely shouldn't have been 0. So they should all be 1. Didn't work. Commit indices are still not coming through. Actually, in this case, we have the problem that the data is also not coming through, which is not good. I don't know why that's happening. Nothing is committed now because the data has just completely failed to come through. So my algorithm seems to be mostly working, except for the fact that there's a lot of instability, a lot of unnecessary elections seem to be happening, and so I need to get a hold on that, basically. Let me first just repeat the test a few times until I get a situation where the leader has committed. So I want to see if it passes in such a situation. After that, I'll look into making the elections. Look at all these request votes. I mean, this just should not be happening. Seriously, mate. Alright, here we go. 4 has again committed. Oh, 2 has committed as well. 1 has committed. Okay, so it's working better than it was before. 0 has not committed. Yeah, but like a majority, so there are 5 servers in the cluster here. A majority has committed. 4, 2, and 1 have all committed. 3 and 0 have written, but not committed. I'm looking at the testing, by the way. It is still very much the case that every time, something is shut down, so at the end of testing, so say here, 0 is shut down, And within the time I've allocated, the grace period 0's not done anything, and 1 has not done anything, and before it's shut down, and 2 and 3. I think basically what I'm saying is I think I can cut down the grace periods and just make the tests a bit easier to read by doing that. So let's just keep doing this until hopefully we, by RNG, get a situation in which everything has committed. I want to see if that means that the test passes. Alright, so in this case we have basically absolute failure. Nothing has even written the data, which is really bad. Not writing the data is just, Unnecessary elections and instability are the primary problems here. How do I copy this fucking sentence? It's got to be possible to just like press enter and copy. Alright, this time around we have no commits because only one thing has written the data. Yeah, program is so unreliable. How do I paste? How do I copy? Is it really so difficult? If I go shift left, it just types D's. Why? What? That makes no sense. Type up. Shift is just typing A, B, C, D. Do you know what? This is ridiculous. I'm just going to use the... Do I want to do that? Nah, do you know what? Alright, I did a Control C and a Control V. That seems to work, so... Yeah, I just want to keep running this test until I hopefully get a situation where... Wow, this code is really, really unreliable. Look at this. So 2 is sending out append entries. I'm having the problem that data seems to be not being received reliably as well. So the in phase is probably a bit wrong as well. But I don't know how to diagnose that as well. It's like, oh, if there's no leader, then things just get dropped or something. So in this situation, okay, this time around we have a commit. We have 2 things that have registered commits. 3 things that have written. Sorry. Yeah, 2 things have registered commits. 4 things have written, and well, yeah, one of them hasn't done either. Test very much still failing, unfortunately. Term 16, there's no way this is going to work. It's going to just fail completely. Oh shit, wait, no, it hasn't failed. God, why won't it calm down? Laptop. This is actually okay. So finally, I've pulled a situation where everything has committed the first piece of data. 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4 have all written and committed. So you can see here 0 has written in the first term and committed. 1, 2, 3, and 4 have also both written. All of them have written and committed. So this is not the problem. Maybe the problem is the fact that no one is sending the data out. Slightly unclear. Let's see if we can look for clues. So looking at part 2b. One way to fail the early tests is to hold unnecessary elections. An election even though the current leader is alive and can talk to all peers. Yeah. Alright, I take your point. I take your point. I am holding unnecessary elections. In the sense that I am allowing things to become candidates. Well, no, things become candidate of their own accord sometimes, but like I'm allowing them to become candidate, and their candidacy overrides my leadership, even if I am still leader. Even though the current leader is alive and can talk to all peers, yeah, I am still. It is true. I am still throwing elections sometimes in that situation. Okay. Yeah, I see that. I see you. I'm gonna have to edit that. I don't see how I'm gonna get away from editing that, to be honest. I'm gonna have to edit that. Basically, if an append entries, if a React append entry comes through, so React is the situation where two things are communicating via RPC, and the sender dominates the receiver on term, so it's more up to date. The term is higher. It is dangerous calling term dominance up to dateness because sometimes things can increment term even though they should not be the leader, which is crazy. Yeah, that's crazy. No, it's not crazy. Is it crazy? There's a subtlety here that I'm gonna have to deal with. Basically, so I have this concept of reaction. So two things are communicating. Two of the servers communicate. You know, it's a handshake. A sends to B, B sends a reply to A. They synchronize their election terms when they do that. And not only that, but there's a react variable that mostly determines when anything should happen, when the receiver should react, and that is when the sender dominates it on term, greater than or equal to on term. So that is allowing a sender to be a vote request sender, a candidate which has incremented its own term, and is therefore, the other one becomes a follower. The leader becomes a follower because it's out of date on term. Changing that, though, I mean, it is true that this means that an unnecessary election can happen, but that only means that only happens if the timeout comes through, if the election timeout happens. Um, and an election timeout is, in a manner of speaking, means that the current leader can't talk to all the peers because there was a timeout on one of its leadership messages. This is slightly concerning. Because, yeah, it's kind of open to interpretation then whether the current leader is alive and can talk to all the peers if there was an election timeout in any circumstance. Something becoming a candidate that counts as an election timeout, even if in the candidacy it then resets the leader. It gets immediately back in contact with the leader that it previously timed out with, and then the leader steps down as a result because the thing is now a candidate with a higher term. Uh-huh. Yeah, that's kind of dodge, isn't it? The problem is having the reason I'm looking into this is because look, 17 elections. That's a bit much. But at the same time, everyone has managed to get consensus, and it's saying here it failed to reach agreement. Oh, it's saying it failed to reach agreement on the next piece of data, I think. And the reason oh shit. That is, I didn't spot that. Sorry. Yeah. No, obviously, look, because it's saying here that the piece of data 200 failed to reach agreement, but we have agreements, but that's on 100. That means that 200 didn't manage to even get sent in, which means there probably just was no leader. If there's no leader, then rip. Nothing is sending append entries, so there is no leader. So the leader's, stepping down. And there are just all these elections which are just, happening thanks to timeouts. I think election timeout should probably be increased. Um, it's saying 150 to 300 milliseconds. considerably more off. If the heartbeat is considerably more often than 150. Well, my heartbeats are now 110, which is not considerably more, but then my election timeouts are 500 to 650, which is a lot bigger than this. But I think I should scale it up even more. Look at this, you may fail to elect a leader within 5 seconds, which is apparently a prerequisite of the tests. So my election timeout is currently 500, but apparently it should be larger. Do you think... But not too large. Okay, basically, okay, so I'm going to run another test and log it to the file. So I'm going to actually look through some of my output. What I want to find out when I look through this test, the data from this test, is I want to find out if in what circumstance things are losing the leadership. In this case, there's a total failure to even register the data. So the robustness of how data is registered is starting to cause problems, I think. How the input writes is happening, because here nothing is writing data down. But if something is a follower, it should not write down the data. If something is a leader, it should automatically write down the data. That's how it should be coded. So I'm looking at it now, where it says start. If is leader, we can currently do an append. Okay, this is an interesting idea I've just had. What if instead of doing an asynchronous append, we do a synchronous append? Which is to say, that means that with priority, the entry gets appended. The problem with that is that this function is supposed to return immediately, and we can't guarantee that because of the lock and unlock. So we have a go routine here, which is definitely gonna... I think this isn't the problem. I think, yeah, this is very likely to append. If something is the leader, it is very likely to, in fact, do the append and receive the command. So the problem you're probably encountering is that data is being sent in when nothing is the leader. Which is... How do you deal with that situation? Surely this is fine. There's no guarantee that a command is actually ever going to be processed. So maybe that's not the problem. But I'm having the problem that tests are failing because entries are literally not making it into Raft at all. None of the servers are registering them. And I think the problem with that is leader is failing. I'll tell you what. I'm going to do a print statement here. I'm going to do 2 print statements. To log whether or not I managed to commit that piece of data. rf.me input O for successful input. No, in fact, you know what? I'm going to do inputs, and then I'm going to say what the data is that is being inputted, which is literally command. In fact, you know what? I'm going to put log entry term and command. Command is coming through. Okay, understood. Yep. Okay, now I'm gonna do like an input O, and then I'm gonna put term and command. Whereas if it fails, I'm gonna, because there is no term in the event that it fails, because the thing was just not leader at all. I'm gonna say input X and then just command. So this will give us an idea of how often. Sorry. This will give us an idea of how often inputs are happening, right? So we can kind of see then, oh, if nothing is the leader, that's why things are failing. So it'll just give us a bit more information to look at. So basically inputs. Let's control F for inputs. 33 times inputs attempted to happen, right? Let's see what's going on. So first of all, input happened immediately, nothing was leader. Cool. Input totally failed to register. It will try again. Alright, so at this point, 1 is a leader, as is 2. 2 is the leader in term 1. 2 fails immediately. This did, when 1 maintains the leadership. How did 2 manage to get elected leader without 1? Because the term 1 leader was 2. But then 1 managed to time out so fast that 1 is timing out. Look at this. Like, oh shit. Okay, no. 1 becomes a candidate, and 1 gets elected with 3 votes. Their mistake. Alright, let me just take a quick setup break. Set my legs, set everything up. Head is okay, mic is okay. Yep. Alright, let me try to get to the bottom of this shit and turn out new Arabic shouty guy. I can still hear him. Ra, re, ri, ro, ru, rukop. Rukop's in the chat. So, I don't know. It's quite a cool emoji. Sorry, emote on Twitch. I always have to distinguish emoticon, emoji, and emote. They just mean different things. Okay, listen. Let's try to figure out what's happened here. 2 became a candidate. It did some vote requests. How did 2 ever manage? Yeah, 2 managed to actually get elected leader. Not by 1. Why did 1 not elected leader? Oh, right, because of term sync. 1 and 3 didn't elect leader. Surely everything should be failing term sync the very first time. Oh no, because 0 also fucking threw an election. What about 4? Is 4 even working? How did 4 manage to get its election synced up without registering a term sync fail? Sorry, how did 4 manage to get its term synced up? Well, I'm not sure it did, lol. Oh, I think 4 was probably just completely, yeah, 4 was just completely disconnected from everyone else. It wasn't even disconnected, it's just it took it that long to send a message. Something timed out in the meantime. 4 managed to time out. Because, God, the problem with all these servers is they send the messages so slowly. The timeout definitely needs to be relaxed. But anyway, forget it. Let's try it. Okay, the first point where stability is established, right, is when something begins sending append entries. So server 2 is heart beating. No, server 1 is heart beating. Server 2 steps down at some point here. So server 2 is heart beating as well. Disaster. So we have 2 leaders. Are you fucking kidding? We have 2 leaders with the same term. How did that happen? What? I thought I fixed the voting bugs. Oh my god, what the hell? Who voted for whom? That's what we care about now. So look at all the vote through messages. Alright, 3 voted for 1. 0 voted for 1. 3 did not vote for 0. 3 voted for 2. In 3's term 0. No, 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 no. No, as in. God, yeah, I think maybe the thing that I do actually need stricter assertions about how votes are determined, because this is some sort of nonsense. You know, here it says 2 is elected leader, because we have 2 and 1 and they are leading at the same time, which is clearly wrong. Okay, I'm going to add an introspective message here in where it says 2 is elected leader. So that's in the candidate code. I'm going to go ahead and put in a term as well. Vote count. Do you know, with vote count, can we not just... Oh no, because of the way channels work, votes are not tied to servers, and so I can't directly log votes, unfortunately. Unless I made a new vote struct to log votes, which I don't want to do particularly. So yeah, it's elected with that many votes, and term, and then yeah, we just iter the term here. A little bit of a scroll there, fucked it up. Fucking work, please. Yeah, so I want to log current term. So many different things are happening now that the debugging is going to be a bit messy. Well, you know, we're looking things we're looking at today. Literally, lots of different things. Things we've been looking at today. Things like, you know, these clashes of leadership in one term, and when data is actually getting sent into the system, that kind of stuff. Look at this. Nobody's leader. Alright, so the first leader is elected when? 2 is elected leader for term 1. Good. Is anyone else elected leader for term 1? Or is that bug just disappeared? Well, something is becoming a candidate for term 2. Lots of things are becoming candidates for term 2. And that's this, you know, because this thing cannot send append entries out fast enough. That's the problem you're having, is your append entry sends are slow, so maybe we need to look at optimizing those as well. So again, you know, it tries to send in 100 and nothing is the leader, so it just gives up. You can see it vividly here. At this point, we're in term 2, lots of things are requesting votes. Does anything even get elected leader ever again? No, we're in term 3, we're in term 4. Oh my god, look at this disaster. It's failing to elect a single leader. Oh wait, append entries. Sorry, I glossed over something. Something became leader at some point. So 2 becomes follower, vote interrupts. 2 is follower again, TS fail. Oh, this is a reply to an old append entries, never mind. Well, yeah, you can see here, append entries is saying, term is 1, but term stepped up to 4 in the meantime. Okay, finally, 1 became a leader for term 4. It's sending out append entries, it manages to send an append entries out to 4, to 0, to 2, to 3, ding, heartbeat done, and nothing seems to... Maybe I should introspect time. Time taken to send heartbeats. Maybe I should do that. That would be a very useful benchmark to have. If we had like a log that prints times between heartbeats, that would be cool. I'll see if I can think of a way to do that. Yeah, okay, these are just old vote messages that got processed with a delay. 1 is still leader. So it should say somewhere 1 leader, okay. Where's the next input? 2 input X, 3, 4, 0, so where's 1 input? Alright, yeah, here again, 0 becomes candidate, and 0 is becoming a candidate because append entries are just failing to send fast enough. There's no other reason. See here, 1 is still the leader. Even though, 1 became the follower. Oh, right, so 1 is the follower again. And so, again, the data just got dropped as a result of that. And this is the story of my life. Data's just not making it in because nothing is leader ever. At this point, 2 is the leader of term 9, so the data does make it in, but that's just so last minute that it's just going to say, like, the error is just, at the end, is just going to be like, this data did not even have a chance to make it anywhere. It got to 2, which it managed to replicate it everywhere, and it committed, 2 committed, but nothing has updated commits yet. And you can see the term has gone up again, so yeah, there are so many unnecessary elections. Alright, so measures I'm going to undertake. Measure number 1, I am going to increase the election timeout substantially to, like, let's say 850, so that it's 850 to 1000. Heartbeat timeout, cut it down to like 105. Excuse me. And heartbeat code just needs to be optimized in order to send out the messages. Fucking ow. Sorry. Wow, this is not good. Imagine if I just start doing that at work. I'm clearly not. Clearly I'm not fit for work. Wow. Maybe I should stop streaming. Well, sometime soon. I just want to give myself a chance to fix this. We're making progress. We're debugging better. What is so slow? Like, seriously. We have replies. So when it says send heartbeats, we make the replies array. Maybe the leader check. Having 2 leader checks is maybe slowing the code down. Do we just remove one of the leader checks? That's gonna be interesting. I don't see why we would remove the leader check considering it all happens in the same lock. There's an unlock during the heartbeat timeout, which is correct. All this stuff needs to be locked. I don't see a way around that. It's just sending loads and loads of send append entries in separate Go routines, which need to be prioritized, but at the same time must remain concurrent. Send append entries is pretty easy, it just sends the message immediately. So I'm not bothered about that. You know, there's no way of speeding that up, but like, I don't particularly see this code as being particularly slow either. It's just I think the scheduler needs to be improved. I think send append entries needs to somehow be sped up via priority scheduling of some sort. Let me see if that is a thing in Go. Golang prioritize Go routine. That's what we would say, you know, run Go routine ASAP. Um, yeah, this is the kind of thing that I'm kind of was afraid of in this case is not going to help us solve the speed problem. Just yawning reading this stuff. Yeah. Never mind, fam. I'm sending out the data pretty damn fast. I'm not actually that worried about this code being slow. It's just well, we're running a for loop, and you know maybe I should be running a Go routine that has this in it as well, because that would minimize waiting, because this stuff would not then be sequentially processed. That's an interesting idea. Not one I'm strictly against. Go Go routine for loop. Parallel for loop. Is this Golang? Yes, it is. But they are as easy to implement using Go routines, and it's kind of like, you know, you do a for loop that runs an anonymous Go function. This is exactly what I was just thinking of doing. That would speed the code up. What can I say? Somewhat, because it would require less, you know, random variable accesses, calculations, copying, all sorts of stuff. I wouldn't have to define a new data structure. I don't think personally this is going to speed it up that much, but the optimization does not cost me anything to just make. So yeah, let's go ahead and do it. Let's do the optimization. So optimization basically looks like this. Go func. I just define an anonymous Go routine here. Move all of this into the routine. And then because I already have my threads, I no longer need to run this as another Go routine. What's the problem? Oh, this does need square round brackets again as well. So yeah, I'm just, you know, running this Go routine at this point, and then this is all done synchronously. Is that going to help? Well, you know, if we take advantage of parallel CPU cores, it might help. I couldn't tell you, possibly. Let's just see how it goes. I think this is. I'm going to leave it here for today. Once I've run this, this will test, which has actually thrown an index out of range error in the heartbeats. What have I done? What have I done? What have I done? Alright, so what's happened? We're looking at heartbeats, anonymous function. There's a in line 34. Oh dear. If ID is not me, next index is rf.nextindex at ID. This is throwing an error? How? Is ID not accessible here? Surely. Hello, it's working again. No, it isn't. Line 35, yeah, this is crashing, created by this, which is line 33. Yeah, we're getting index out of range. This is the most random possible index out of range error. You know, we have next index, and ID is looping through peers, and it's saying if ID is not me. This is so random. I do not understand. How could that possibly be happening? So here it says 5, which means it is running this with ID equals 5. What? But length of rf.peers is... What the hell? This is definitely the last thing I do today. Fixing this, the most random of errors. Yeah, length of rf.peers is 5. Which means that this for loop should not be... that is weird. Yeah, so ID is for looping strictly less than this, which means it should not be going off at all. No, I know what's happening. Yeah, I know what's happening. Because I'm running this asynchronously, ID is getting edited and not copied. So, basically I need to pass a copy of the ID variable. Let me just see if it says that here. You know, where it says, yeah, so, you know, you have to pass the counter variable into the go routine, or else, because this is asynchronous, it will not read the variable correctly, so you just have to pass it in. Okay, well, I'm glad I managed to figure out what the problem was. I run it on the ID, you know, and the ID is the input variable, and so it makes a copy of it at that point where it is called with, and it is called synchronously. Obviously, the function call is synchronous, so ID is correctly passed into the asynchronous go routine here, and then it has a copy of what the correct ID is, and so it works. Yep. Okay, problem solved. Yeah, the problem was the go routine was just running, you know, according to its own volition on the scheduler, and ID, because of the for loop, increases ID to its final value of 5 in the meantime, and then when it gets picked up, it's changed from what it should be. And so I'm making a copy of it at each step so that it doesn't change. Which is not, I think that is not a substantial performance hit. Certainly, still an improvement. Anyway, that should now work, so it's not going to be crashing anymore. But this is still very far from working. So again, yeah, I guess next session we are going to be for this shit. Delete. Next session we're going to be, you know, looking through some of this output and trying to analyze it, trying to figure out if, you know, the heartbeat timeout is still too big. I don't know. I mean, the heartbeat timeout is massive now. Sorry, no, the heartbeat timeout is tiny, but the election timeout is massive now. It's just, the problem is, you know, when something becomes leader, this is really the essential problem I'm having. You know, something that gets... Okay, no, 0 should just immediately step down, so this isn't going to be a problem, I don't think. But, yeah, here it stepped down. Is leader check failed? 0 became follower because of term sync fail pretty fast, as soon as 1 requested a vote from it. Okay, so that's fine. So here, right, 1 is leader, and then 1 has to send append entries out really fast before anything has a chance to time out. And yeah, I definitely need to figure out a way of checking the speeds of append entries, but like, yeah, it's 1, you know, it goes out to 4, it goes out to 2, it goes out to 3, but it doesn't manage to go out to like 0. So 0 is at risk of timing out. So, you know, here 0 sent out a bunch of append entries with the correct term. 0 increased its term, but it's still sending out append entries because you can't force close follower effectively. But you can do a test that at the point where you're sending append entries, the term is what you originally thought it was. I guess maybe I should implement that as well. But yeah, just looking at it, 0 is, you know, the append entries is not successfully getting sent to 0 from 1. Well, it managed it finally here, but this is how, you know, this is how things go wrong. So something timed out, 4 timed out. By the time this, I do not know why my append entries are so slow. I think possibly the handler is being really slow. You know, what does the handler do? Let's just have a quick look at it. It does a term sync. Which is like, no, it does. I'll check the chat in a sec. I did hear I got a message. I mean, this runs immediately and it should be pretty fast, surely. It sends an election reset. I don't know. Well, it's more things to think about. I think definitely we're going to have to introduce a way of timing things, figuring out what is taking so long, which bit of the code, by doing regular time checks. And so I guess that's what I'll be thinking about in the next session. What we're doing. Well, I'm doing the Raft consensus algorithm. Or at least I was doing it. I'm about to stop because in 5 minutes time House is going to start and so I'm going to stop streaming. It's unfortunate timing because that was my plan all along. But what I've been doing, right, is I've been trying to get the Raft consensus algorithm, which you can read about below in my Twitch description. I have the problem I have with it is that like it's extremely slow. Basically, I'm trying to get data. I'm trying to get data through Raft, but you know, Raft is a leader is elected, and then everything else is a follower. And every time the leader sends a message with data, the followers submit in the sense that they reset their timeout for when they're going to call an election, and an election is called if the leader fails. That's the idea. The idea is that then something else becomes the leader. But the problem I'm having is basically elections are getting called. You know, the leader cannot send out heartbeats, which are it can't send out messages to the followers regularly fast enough for the followers not to time out and do elections. And so I'm just trying to figure out ways around that, which will be continued, I guess. Well, I'm going to continue this. What did I say? I think it says on my stream when I'm continuing. Thursday at 9 p.m. So that's British summertime, which is UTC +1, 9 p.m. So now it's 2 p.m. for example. So just tomorrow I'm going to do that. Yeah, I'm unlucky for dropping in just as I'm ending the stream. I've so far not had that happen to anyone, but yeah, I guess it happens. An AI coder for 16 years, a mile over my head. You can do anything. I'm not a computer scientist at all, right? Basic algorithm stuff, a lot of that would be over my head. I haven't learned any of it. I know nothing about operating systems. I just challenged myself to learn distributed systems, and through a lot of hours, I'm getting a hold of it. So it's less over my head than it was. Although definitely, if I'd done operating systems, I probably would have had an easier time learning this. But yeah, and AI is something I'd love to learn about, if that's machine learning or I don't know. Thanks. Yeah, what sort of AI? Just quickly before because I only have like a minute and a half, so I'm gonna leave as soon as you tell me the answer. But I'm curious. I'll just shut everything down. So this was session 19, commit everything, git push. I'll resume at 9 p.m. tomorrow. Just trying to fix this shit. The test has not passed a single time today, and it's a sort of RNG test. Just click on my channel. No, that's fair enough. That's a very easy and efficient way of figuring it out. Thanks. Yeah, I'll make sure to do that. And thanks for stopping by. You might catch me again. I'm doing this approximately every 1.5 days. So tomorrow evening, touch the microphone, sorry. 2014 Loebner Prize winner. Cool. Thanks for stopping by. I'll definitely read about that and find out what you're up to. And you can read about Raft. The Raft illustration on my Twitch page is a very quick and easy intuition on what Raft is, even though it doesn't exactly explain what it's used for practically, but never mind. How Raft works, yeah, the illustration on my Twitch page. Alright, thanks. I'm gonna leave. The house is definitely gonna start now, so thanks for stopping by. Thanks, yeah. It's a fun project, but long as hell. Alright, see you guys.